What? Still, I'm not used to it. Okay. Okay. So here's the game plan, and we gotta truncate it a little bit, just because of time constraints. We were doing the Rambam in Deos 2, 4 about silence. Okay, 4 and 5 about silence, and in 2:5 he quoted Chazal saying "Siag l'chachma shtika." Okay, a fence or a boundary or a border for chachma, for wisdom, is silence. Okay, and I don't think we really went into that so deeply. Okay, but the Rambam learned it as being for teachers. Okay, because all the examples he gave was how you shouldn't teach in a like using like lengthy speech, which is funny because I saw English translation that say you shouldn't teach with circumlocution. I was like, what circumlocution? You know, but and you shouldn't like shout, and you shouldn't like you should speak quietly and gently, and you shouldn't be quick to answer questions. You should and like be pleasant and stuff. It was all examples about chachamim. Oh, you should, yeah. It was all examples about like teaching. Okay, so I went into this more, and I found that Rabbeinu Yonah learns it about for the student. Okay, and in the interest of and then so here's the game plan. The game plan is actually not to focus on the ideas. Okay, I want to focus on the practicality. Okay, because you'll see from when we do the Rabbeinu Yonah, this is very tied into to what we were doing in Bruce Lee on last 2 Bruce Lee things, and then this is something I want to work on of being a better listener. So this is like I'm just doing this like for practical purposes. Also, kind of selfishly, that like you can help me to do this. If you guys do it, then that's also good because you'll according to Rabbeinu Yonah, you'll gain. But like I want to do it for myself, and so what I want to do is. In 2017, I compiled, when I was going through another Krishnamurti phase. He's an Indian philosopher and thinker. So I say Christian phase. Yeah, no, I heard that. Krishnamurti, it's a last name, Jiddu Krishnamurti. I collected a bunch of his statements about how to listen. And when I read this Rabbeinu Yonah, I was like, that's like, this is a how-to for what Rabbeinu Yonah is saying. So I want to read the Rabbeinu Yonah, get what he's saying, but then focus on the practical implementation, which is all in this. And we'll do this in 30 minutes, okay? We'll aim to do this, okay? So let's do, we're not even gonna do the whole Mishnah because of time, okay? Siag l'chachma shtika, okay? A fence for wisdom is silence, yeah.
What's even the basic like translation? Does that mean expense for retaining the stuff we have?
That's one of the questions.
Oh, okay.
That's one of the questions, yeah. So the overarching question that we're gonna have to bear in mind with Rabbeinu Yonah is fence in what sense? Okay, and this is not, what was it? Okay. Oh yeah. I got to distinguish between the whether they're like I had a brilliant idea or a question or like but what do you call it? The Mepharshim are divided on this. Okay. Like you'll see that some of them say it's like a fence for preventing Chochmah from being corrupted. Okay. Others will say it's like the Rambam, like a fence for making sure that if you're a teacher, your Chochmah gets to your student. So like we'll see what Rabbeinu Yonah says. Okay. Oh, also just I know we talked about this recently. There is a Rabbeinu Yonah spectrum in terms of crystal clear explaining things and writing like with grammatical accuracy, and then there's like either he was writing notes and it got printed, or I think there's a lot of corruption in the manuscript. Like even I looked at Al Torah, and Al Torah is different than the Torah Chaim, which is what we were using. And like we initially learned it with the Al Torah, and like it just didn't make sense. And then we looked at the Torah Chaim, it still doesn't make sense, total sense. But certain like just grammatical things, like putting an extra low in there, like is just So like we're gonna have to play a little bit fast and loose with Rabbeinu Yonah. Because I think that the gears is messed up here. Okay. So Rabbeinu Yonah is on. Where does it start? So top right on page Ayin Vav. If you're on Ayin Vav, last line, right? Siag l'chachma shtika. Zeh hasiag bin lemidoseha bin l'chachma. Next page, atzma. So this fence is for the midos. It's midos. The midos of Chochmah, and for Chochmah itself. What are the midos of Chochmah? Good question. You know who answers it? When? Next sentence. Yeah, okay, good. That is, and in fact, he even explains it first, because he knows you can ask it, okay? Because he's a good listener. Yeah. Limidoseha ketzad. What does it mean for its midot of Chochmah? She'eno nichnas letoch divrei chavero. He doesn't, literally, he doesn't enter into the words of his friend, but it means he doesn't interrupt his friend while he's speaking. Ve'al shelo shama omer lo shamati. How would you translate that?
And on that one, here, he says, I didn't hear you.
Okay, right. So one translation is if he didn't hear something, he says, I didn't hear. What would be the other translation for shama? Understand, right? So I don't know which, if I didn't understand it, he says, I didn't understand. Okay.
What's the third one?
There's a third one, which is to obey, but it doesn't mean that here, I don't think. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like he's talking about listening. Like, why wouldn't it be here?
It could be. It could be. But it could be also that he's just. I mean, I guess you could ask on whoever he's quoting, but yeah, it's possible. Okay, so that is those are midot of Chochmah. Okay, and he defines what it means. He says v'afapi she'ena michlal hashtika mevia lidei kach. Even though, now I think the way of translating this is even though it is not included in silence, and it being Chochmah, silence brings you to it. So what does that mean? Even though it is not included in silence, even though Chochmah is not included in silence, silence brings you to it.
Well, if we go with like understanding, I guess the more you like make sure that you understand, like through like just like asking for a clarification, like being precise, like then you won't just have to like randomly speak out about like when you just like I'm doing right now.
Okay, so actually, let me ask a more basic question here because you're answering the question I should have asked beforehand. First of all, how do those two examples lead you to Chochmah? That's what you're answering, right? You're saying that how does not listening preclude Chochmah, and how does saying that I don't listen, that I didn't hear, lead you to Chochmah? Right. And then how does interrupting your friend preclude Chochmah, and not interrupting your friend lead to Chochmah?
Wait, is it talking about when it says Apple P and Lachlal that Chochmah is not in Shtiga, or that the Mida is not in Shtiga?
I think Chochmah.
Okay.
Because he's saying he's defining. It sounds like he's defining midot saha as things midot that lead you to Chochmah.
Okay.
So he's elaborating, saying even though Chochmah is not found in Shtika, then it brings you to then Shtika brings you to Chochmah. Okay.
Okay. It does seems like there's a missing step there. I mean, I'm not sure how the midot like the Shtika bring you to the midot.
Shtika.
What's the relationship between Shtika and midot?
I think he's saying cool. So all right. So let's actually use that as an opportunity to review everything right now. Okay. So we're doing the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, just the clause that says "Siag lechachma shtika," that a fence for chachma is silence, and then Rabbeinu Yonah says it is a fence that is for the midot of chachma and for chachma itself. And then he explains what does it mean for the midot of chachma, or what are examples of midot of chachma, is that you don't interrupt your friend, and if you didn't hear something or understand something, you say I didn't hear or I didn't understand. And then he says even though chachma is not included in shtika, in silence, then shtika brings you to chachma. So the way I'm understanding it is that he's explaining so he's saying shtika is a fence for the midot of chachma,
right, and
that these are examples of shtika. Actually, are these examples of shtika? No, they're not. What am I saying? These are midot that lead you to Chochmah. And yeah, where's the relationship with shtika? Good question.
The not interrupting sounds like it could be an example of shtika.
Yeah, I think that's why I thought that. And then, what was it?
I thought that was a recording.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that definitely is, you're silencing yourself to not interrupt your friend. But then saying, I didn't hear when he really did hear. I don't understand how that's shtika.
Wait, he said I didn't hear when he didn't hear.
He said I didn't hear when he didn't hear. Yeah, sorry, did I say the wrong thing? Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, because when it's not, well, presumably he didn't hear because it was too loud. Maybe.
I don't know.
Where he didn't understand.
Yeah, but what does that have to do with shtika?
Because it's got quiet to hear.
Oh,
But he likes.
oh, he's talking too much?
Wait.
I don't know about that. And the only reason I don't know about this, the Rabbeinu is going to give an explicit case of that later on, and I feel like he'd be more explicit.
Okay.
All right, let's go on in the interest of time again. Get the big picture here. And when I say the big picture, I have to actually read all of the Rabbeinu Yonah next, because when we were learning this, then we made a mistake of stopping and we misunderstood one of the cases. Okay, so we're gonna read the whole thing. Okay, so you can like interrupt me. Well, you can't interrupt me because he said stopping, but if you interrupt me to if you don't understand something, but we're not gonna analyze yet. Okay, so he says siyad l'chachma ketzah. So how is it a offense for chachma itself? Okay, she'enu medaber l'fnei mi shegadol mimena b'chachma. He doesn't speak before one who is greater than him in chachma. Now this is something that they were makbid on in the olden days. I feel like we're not to makbid on that anymore, and I guess we'll have to decide like how much we carry that over to now. But then he'll give an example. Ki halomid, and this is I don't know if this is most for I'm not in anyone's Gemara shiur these days, you know, in your Gemara shiurs, but like, you know, if this applies to you, then apply it to yourself, because this is very, like when I read this, I was like, oh, I have been in this situation. I've seen people in this situation. Okay, ki halomid bifnei ravo. So you're learning in front of your rav. V'roe svara achas b'halacha, and you see a certain svara in halacha. And now the scenario I'm getting here is your rav is giving you the halachos, and the rav is going to give a svara. Okay, but let's say he's in the middle of giving over the halachos and you see a svara. Okay. Al yachshov miyad kihi hamitis. Don't think right away that it's true, that your own svara is true. Yeah. V'lo yirtze l'omra b'terem yisayim rabbi miladaber. Don't desire to say your svara before your rav has finished speaking. Okay. She'im lo yatekein. Now I think this is where there's a typo, because if you don't do this, yafsid mash yomer rabo, you will lose what your rav said. V'lo yeda hasvaros min hachachamim hakadmonim, and you won't know the svaros from the earlier sages. Ki libo na v'nad lahodia dato, because your heart is like restless to make known your opinion. Okay. The word lo must not be there. Okay, I think the way you're supposed to read it basically is your rav is saying over the halacha. You want to say you see a svara, and he's saying don't think that it's true. Finish listening to your rav, because otherwise you're going to miss out on these svaras because your heart is restless to make known your opinion. Okay, this is where we stop and read the next case. This is where we stop and read the next case. Trust me, I've made this twice.
I have a way to read the word low.
Okay, I want to do this. I've made this mistake twice. Okay, so just trust me. Okay, I prepared this once with Levi, and I did this again today. Okay, and yeah, all right. Began ki svaras lo tucha lios mechuvenes kolkach ad yishma ma amru harishonim. Also, your svara is not going to be very precise until you've heard the words of the rishonim, until you've heard the words of the prior sages. V'yishko b'mozne sechlo, and you weigh in the on the scales of your intellect. Ezo tichshar hazo imzo ozo. Which svara is better, yours or this one or this one? So just to contrast the two cases, the first case is you interrupt your rav while he's giving over the halachos, okay, in order to give your svara. So the halachos meaning the facts. Second one is you give your svara before you hear the svaras that he's giving, okay, which he's calling the svaras of the Chachamim Harishonim.
That was the first case?
No, the first case is you interrupt the rav while he's going over the facts. I know he also mentions the svaros amina Chachamim HaKadmonim, but I think there he means because you haven't heard the facts yet. And then this other one is he's saying your svara won't be so exact because you have to hear the svaros of Chachamim HaKadmonim and then weigh your intellect with theirs. You know, whereas the first case is not really weighing your intellect with theirs; it's just listening to the facts being finished.
Meaning contrasting your idea with theirs.
Yeah, right. Contrasting your idea with theirs. Okay, and then Al-Kain, therefore, now this is where he makes his point. Hashtika l'talmid lifnei rabo v'hagadol min l'chachma siag l'chachma. Therefore, a talmid being silent in front of his rav, or the one who's greater than him in chachma, is a fence for chachma. Ubihimate svara v'harav odenu medaber v'hu shotek. And when he finds a svara, which I think means when he thinks of the talmid thinks of a svara, and the rav is still speaking, and he is quiet, lo yiftach piv, so he shouldn't open his mouth, ad ya'iru divrei rabo, until the words of his rav illuminate him, utvaraso chakuka belibo, ad gemar hadvarim, and the rav's svara is engraved on his heart upon finishing his words, v'yeda ma shalim do rabo, and he knows what his rav taught him, then he could have a svara that's clear and exact. And regarding this, Shlomo said, A fool only doesn't desire understanding except in revealing his heart. And if you want that, according to Rabbeinu Yonah, you can listen to the first Mishlei shiur we did in the year, or the super ultra hyper mega meta Mishlei review, edition 1. Okay, so that's the end of the Rabbeinu Yonah. All right, now what were you guys gonna say or ask? Yeah.
Well, now I have a new question.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I was listening
Oh.
instead of wanting to speak.
Yeah.
No, but like he added another point after this point where we both had a question that you wanted to go through, but he didn't like really change the case.
No, he's saying two things. He's saying that don't think your svara is true before your Rav has finished speaking.
Right.
And then he says, because if you do, you'll lose what your Rav says, and you won't know the svaros from the Chachamim HaKadmonim because your heart is kicking to like say your opinion. Then he says, your svara won't be exact until you hear what the Chachamim HaKadmonim said and you weigh it on the scales of your intellect, which he then later on clarifies, says you've completely heard your Rav's svara and his svara is engraved in your heart, and then you can come up with a good svara. So it sounds like he's saying that there's two potential places for interruption. One is when your Rav is giving over the facts, and if you do that, you're going to lose out on what your Rav said and on what the Chachamim said, the Chachamim HaKadmonim. And then the second place of interruption is like he said the facts, and you interrupt his, you speak before his svara, and then you're not weighing your svara with theirs. And then the proper place to speak is after you've heard the facts and your Rav svara, and you fully understand your svara, and then you can give your svara. Yeah.
What if you don't understand the Rav svara?
Then you should ask about it.
Right.
Yeah.
So the quietness that he's referring to is just in reference to your own.
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
And then when he's saying that it should be totally engraved and like totally understood and accepted, so like you should be asking
Yes.
until you reach that point,
Yeah.
and then you could go on to give your svara.
Exactly. Yeah.
Ah.
Yeah.
For the first case, like kind of sounds like maybe the person is not even interrupting, they just really like want to.
Yes, okay, that is another way to learn it, right? That's true. Meaning it's just that he is not he's too preoccupied in thinking about his own svara, and his heart just wants to like make known his own opinion, and he's not listening. And then the second case is he's actually interrupting. Is that what you're saying, Tamar? Yeah.
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 Joe?
So
Yeah.
So Jordan Peterson says something like this, where he basically makes the point that when you're having a conversation with someone, you should listen with the intent of hearing what they say, not with the intent of responding.
Yeah.
Because when you're intending to respond, you're thinking of your response as they're speaking, and you're missing half the words they say.
Right. There's a great quote that is the flip side of that. The flip side? Yeah. That for most people, having a conversation is just being quiet and waiting your own turn to talk.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I think, what were you going to ask earlier?
Well, I was gonna say, I think I have a way of reading the Rabbeinu Yonah, don't change the pure stuff,
Okay.
which is that he saying there's this principle that you shouldn't be like waiting to talk. And if you don't follow the principle of not doing that, then you'll have the fact that
I think I tried today taking that route, and there were too many no's and nots. I just got confused. I was like, it's a bad gear, And I think I got does it get to the same idea? It's just a more cumbersome way to say it. Yeah. Circumlocution. Yeah. Yeah. Now I do want to make one point regarding that last part about how you should listen to a shiur. I do think that there are two styles of giving shiur. There is a style that the Rav fully gives his svara, and your job is to listen and get the Rav svara. And then if you have a better svara, then you can like propose it. And then there's a style of shiur that literally, I think every shiur that I give is more of a chavura style, where like the goal is to come up with your own ideas, and like we all talk it out in shiur, And I think that those are just two different styles. And same thing with like Rebbe, let's say, like when he gave Shavuot shiurs, people just thought it was like a regular shiur, that you should just there would always be things like people like Rebbe would go through, 3 hours and give like 25 questions, and then it'd be, Rebbe, I think I have an answer. And we would all just want to shoot the guy, even though it's like us or on Yom Tov, because like Rebbe prepared the shiur for 3 months, with the greatest chachamim, like on this side of the Mississippi, and like, and like, you think you got the svara in like like 5 days. And not only that you got this far, but like the shiur is going to go on for another 5 hours. Like you're just going to like give this like no, but yeah, and then people were misled because in a regular shiur, like that's what we do here. That's like one of the styles. Yeah.
So I guess like I feel like what you just said kind of answers this question, but I'll ask anyway. Like, so where is it appropriate to ask the questions in regards to understanding what is being said in the style of shiur, where the point is just to get this far
All the time.
all the time?
That's lo b'ayfan lo me. That's if someone who's embarrassed is not going to learn,
Right.
because that's not the same thing as saying your own svara.
Right. Meaning like even when he's saying the fact you don't understand the fact.
Yes,
that's not the fact,
exactly.
right?
Yeah. And that I think is what he said in the first part of the midos of Chochmah. If you didn't hear or you didn't understand the fact,
Right.
then you have to ask about it, and that's one of the midos that leads to Chochmah. Yeah.
Why is this specifically Rav? It seems like it would apply to anyone who's
Yeah.
telling you anything.
So it's possible. I did not do the Rabbeinu Yonah on the first part of this, so I don't know if it's the context or the man d'amar. I also think that this should apply to everyone. It's possible that just because if he's learning it as receiving Chochmah, and it's possible he's using the Mifflei definition of Chochmah means received knowledge, then Chochmah means receiving Chochmah, and where are you going to do that with your Rav? Or like that's just the most, or Misha Gadol Mimenu B'Chochmah,
Right. Is this a similar thing that we have like I know I mentioned like we do like you like analyze the pasuk and like it has a localized meaning and
Yes.
then you extrapolate it.
Yeah, I do think that, and that's the plan also.
Oh,
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I was gonna say you could just say that this is like a prototypal example.
Yeah, right. That definitely is the case, and it's also the weightier example. Like if you don't like, if your friend's talking about like a movie, and like you're like waiting to like talk about your favorite movie, what are you going to lose out on? But if it's Chochmah, then that's like a real thing. Okay. So as I mentioned, you guys weren't here when I mentioned this, but the goal of this was really to get to the practicality, and the practicality spelled out in this this Indian philosopher, I'm doing this for selfish reasons because I want to understand how to actually implement Rabbeinu Yonah saying, and I think hopefully you'll agree with me that this is good advice. So this is my blog post, but we're only going to read the indented portions. Okay, so the goal here is to actually like talk about this and understand it and like find ways to practically implement it. Okay.
We should all interrupt each other.
Okay. So he says like this. So the first indented portion. How do you listen? Oh, also while we do this, think about what we did with Bruce Lee in the how he says combat should be, because I think this is exactly the same thing. Listening is combat. It's the same principle. Okay. How do you listen? Do you listen with your projections, through your projection, through your ambitions, desires, fears, anxieties, through hearing only what you want to hear, only what will be satisfactory, what will gratify, what will give comfort, what will for the moment alleviate your suffering? If you listen through the screen of your desires, then you obviously listen to your own voice. You are listening to your own desires. And is there any other form of listening? Is it not important to find out how to listen not only to what is being said, but to everything? Listening has importance only when one is not projecting one's own desires through which one listens. Can one put aside all these screens through which we listen and really listen? Yeah.
I feel like just like initial reaction is like it sounds like he's kind of describing like being in self.
Yes.
When
Yeah.
you're like accessing self in order to listen, and then like when the listening part of that conversation is over, then like I mean, I guess ideally stay in self, but
Yeah.
like it's okay if you're
Right.
not.
So translate for muggles. What Avi's saying is basically that when your emotions are blinding you, then your cell Elohim is not functioning in a purely objective, open, receptive, connected, calm, creative, compassionate sense. And and so like you in order to really listen and be able to really hear what's being said, then you have to separate your emotions from that, and your desires. Yeah. What elicited the exhalation?
What he said. Phrasing.
Is it not
important to find out how to listen not only to what is being said, but to everything?
Yeah.
Meaning because what is being said is not everything.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, what does that mean?
Like, is he saying like there's implications to people's words? There's not just a literal translation of their with like,
What do you mean when you say implication?
like
Like, what do you example?
not visions, like people are implying things when they're saying things, and like I don't know, especially like
Yeah, okay, yeah. That's why I wasn't sure what you meant, is that, yeah, that there is
or
the,
doing things or whatever.
you're right, there's the words, but then there's also like, look at the next paragraph. I think I'll just add to this to answer your question. The beauty of listening lies in being highly sensitive to everything about you, to the ugliness, to the dirt, to the squalor, to the poverty about you, and also to the dirt, to the disorder, to the poverty of one's own being. When you are aware of both, then there is no effort. That is, when there is an awareness which is without choice, then there's no effort. So there's two things here. There's what's coming from the other person other than their words, and like their tone and their look and their face and their, you get certain, I'm sure you've had this experience in talking to people, is just you get, there's certain undercurrents of feeling that you can pick up on if you're actually listening, but you're listening not just with your ear, you're listening with your entire self. And then what he introduced in this next paragraph is being aware of your own, again, it's all the things are related, but like listening to your own desires and your own feelings. Like if you, let's say someone's telling you something, you start to feel uncomfortable. So there is being trapped in the feeling of discomfort that will blind you to what they're saying. And then there's realizing a part of me is feeling uncomfortable and listening to the fact that that's going on while this person is talking and being aware of it and not trying to push it away or not trying to push what they're saying away because of this, like letting the discomfort, the uncomfortable part, push that away. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a Rebbe who would say that he learned more from his Rebbe from the silences and the pauses in his speech than actually what he was saying.
I would believe that. Yes, that I have had that experience with Pesach, definitely. I mean, I wouldn't say I've learned more from the silences, but I know it's hyperbole. Yeah, right. All right, this next one I think is the one that is. Oh wait, is this next one? Okay, yeah, I forgot. Well, let's read the next one also. Again, these are all related, but listening itself is quite an art. Most of us never really listen. Therefore, we hear only partially. We hear the words that are spoken, but our minds are elsewhere, or our minds respond only to the meaning of the words. That's what you were saying, Zeph. And this immediate response prevents us from hearing that which lies beyond the words. So listening is an art, but if you can listen totally to what is being said, then in that very listening, you will find there is a liberation, because such listening is unpremeditated, uncalculated. It is an action of truth because your whole mind is there, your total attention is being given. If you listen without interpreting, without remembering a quotation from some old book, or comparing all this with what you have read, then you will find that your own mind has undergone a really radical change. And that's not saying, again, this is like getting into the Bruce Lee thing. It's not saying throw away all the knowledge that you have. There is a time when you like bring that knowledge up again. When you're listening, though, you can't be listening through like associating to an idea or fitting into a category or like, building upon something that you've heard. Then you're not really listening. You're listening to yourself. You're not really listening to the other person. And that's what really, this is the paragraph that I was reminded of with Rabbeinu Yonah. If you have your svara and you're listening to your Rebbe through your svara, then you're going to end up just like, clouding your understanding of what he's saying from this. And if you really want to like, I know I've told this anecdote before, but I'm trying to repeat anecdotes, is there's this one time when Rav Pesach was giving a tzvara and someone in shiur said like, Rebbe, is it like, and then like he quoted like some like classic tzvara, and right, and then like Rav Pesach was like, no, and he was like, someone else maybe was like, is it like this other like thing, and Rav Pesach was like, I think the phrase he used was, not every new idea is an old idea. like something like that. I might even be getting mixed up with what Rebbe was saying. I don't know if it was Rebbe or Pesach, but like the truth in the story. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I was gonna say.
Fine. You'll remember.
All right.
Okay, next. Sorry to rush, but I kind of feel like I want this to, we do not listen. There are too many noises about us. Inside us, there's too much talk, too much questioning, too much demanding, too many urges, compulsions. We have so many things and we never listen to any one of them completely, totally to the very end. And if you would kindly so listen, you will see that in spite of yourself, the mutation, that emptiness, that transformation, the perception of what is true comes into being. You don't have to do a thing because what you do will interfere, because you are greedy, you're envious, you are full of hate, ambition, and all the mischief that thought can make. So if you can listen happily, effortlessly, then perhaps in the quiet, deep silence, you will know what is truth. And it is only that truth that liberates and nothing else. That is why you must stand completely alone. You cannot listen through another. You cannot see with the eyes of another. You cannot think with the thoughts of others. But yet you listen through others, see through the activities, through the saints, through the dictum of others. So if you can put away all these secondary things, the activities of others, and be simple, quiet, and listen, then you will find out. And that's the paradox of how do you actually listen to the, it's not a paradox, but like how do you actually listen to the Chachamim by completely standing aside all of the stuff that you have that you're bringing to the table. That's that Bruce Lee anecdote of the guy with the teacup of like he wants to learn from the master and like he keeps on interrupting him, literally like this whole thing. So like finally the master comes and like says, let me pour you a cup of tea, and he pours the cup and he's like, stop, and it overflows. And he says, you can't drink from my tea until like you've emptied your teacup or something like that, you know, like that, that's the, yeah.
Yeah, I remember what I was going to say, which is in reference to the paragraph you were saying before, like you can't have like, or I don't know, I don't think you can have like full control over like your subconscious and like thoughts or associations that are just going to like enter as you're like, even if you're in the state of like fully listening, like there might be something that just pops up, but it sounds to me like what he's stressing is like, it's okay that something pops up, like you're not in control of that, but just to like be aware of the fact that that popped up, okay, like just move to the side, let me finish listening, and like if it's like a strong enough, it's like important enough, like it'll come back when the listening is over.
Yeah.
As opposed to usually what happens is it pops up and then you go, oh, that's good. Let me strengthen that. Let me like make it even further. And then you get lost in that and then you stop, you lose that total listening.
Right. And that's something that needs to be practiced, of asking the thought to just
Yeah.
step aside,
Yeah.
you know, or like acknowledging that you had a feeling about this and putting it to the side. Yeah.
I was just doing that when you were speaking. That was crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. See, this is my secret plan, was what I'm hoping is that by reading through this, we're all going to be hyper aware of this and no one will ever talk again. No. And then in shiur, I hope that we end up listening to each other better. And then when I see that like you're making an effort to listen to me, then I'll make a better effort to listen to you, and it'll be like a virtuous cycle. That's what I'm hoping. Let's do one more. I just want to get it out there because you know, and then we can always talk about it later. It is important to know how to listen, not only to me particularly, but to anybody. That's expanding it from the Rabbeinu Yonah's thing, from the Chochmah to the. It is important to know how to listen, because if we know how to listen truly, something extraordinary happens to us, because then without any bias, without any prejudice, we can go to the root of the matter immediately. But if we throw up a lot of arguments, concoct devices or contradictions to see who is correct and who is not correct, and carry on with our own particular idiosyncrasies and ideas, then we will not discover the truth of the matter at all. We shall only be concerned with our own particular conclusions, with our own point of view. So if I may suggest, it is important that we should listen truly, because if we can know how to listen, the truth will reveal itself. We do not have to explore the problem, but if we know how to listen to the song of a bird, to the voice of another, if we can listen as to music without any interpretation or translation, it definitely clarifies the mind. So similarly, if it is possible, let us listen with that intention, not to compute or to conform, but to directly find out the truth for ourselves. Now, he might have a completely different idea of truth than we do, but the techniques of being able to listen to something without thought, judgment, analysis, and practicing that in everyday life, even with music or the sound of birds or with stuff like that, will help you to actually listen to sources of Chochmah better, you know, because it practices mindfulness. You know, you'll be able to be attentive and be present when someone is speaking. Is it the last one? No, sorry. It seems to me that learning is astonishingly difficult, as is listening also. We never actually listen to anything because our mind is not free. Our ears are stuffed up with those things that we already know, so listening becomes extraordinarily difficult. I think, or rather it is a fact, that if one can listen to something with all of one's being, with vigor, with vitality, then the very act of listening is a liberative factor. But unfortunately, you never do listen, as you have never learned about it. After all, you only learn when you give your whole being to something. When you give your whole being to mathematics, you learn. But when you are in a state of contradiction, when you do not want to learn but are forced to learn, then it becomes merely a process of accumulation. To learn is like reading a novel with innumerable characters. It requires your full attention, not contradictory attention. If you want to learn about a leaf of the spring or a leaf of the summer, you must really look at it, see the symmetry of it, the texture of it, the quality of the living leaf. There is beauty, there's vigor, there's vitality in a single leaf. So to learn about the leaf, the flower, the cloud, the sunset, the wolves, or a human being, you must look with all intensity. Yeah. Okay, last, yeah, fine.
I just want to say,
Yes, sure.
I like how he extends it from listening to seeing.
Yes, that's true, right. Which shows that it's really perceiving.
Just being.
Yeah, yeah.
Sensing.
When you make an effort to listen, are you listening? Is not that very effort a distraction that prevents listening? Do you make an effort when you listen to something that gives you delight? You are not aware of the truth, nor do you see the false, as long as your mind is occupied in any way with effort, with compassion, with comparison, with justification or condemnation. Listening is a complete act. The very act of listening brings its own freedom. But are you really concerned with listening or with altering the turmoil within? If you would listen in the sense of being aware of your conflicts and contradictions without forcing them into any particular pattern of thought, perhaps they might altogether cease. You see, we are constantly trying to be this or that to achieve a particular state, to capture one kind of experience and avoid another. So the mind is everlastingly occupied with something. It is never still to listen to the noise of its own struggles and pains. Be simple and don't try to become something or to capture some experience. Yeah. Is this the last one? Yeah. You know, there are two ways of listening: to listen casually, to hear a series of ideas, agreeing or disagreeing with them. Or there's another way of listening, which is not only to listen to the words and the meaning of those words, but also to listen to what is actually taking place in yourself. If you listen in this way, then what the speaker says is related to what you are listening to in yourself. Then you are not merely listening to the speaker, which is irrelevant, but to the whole content of your being. And this is what I want. And if you are listening in that way with intensity, at the same time and at the same level, then we are both of us partaking, sharing together in what is actually taking place. Then you have the passion which is going to transform that which is. The last sentence is a little weird, yeah. The second to last sentence I get is that if we're, again, imagine if we were all actually listening to each other in shiur, then like we would I lost my train of thought.
Sorry.
The both of us, the speaker and the listener.
What was that?
If we're both paying attention, if we're both listening to the same.
Yeah, if we were all listening to each other in shiur, yeah, the listener and the speaker, then we would remain connected at every step of the way and be able to follow each other's comments and questions and thoughts with less effort. Like, you know, that feeling of like the feeling of telepathy that takes place between chavrusas or between friends or between like family, when you're completely connected and you kind of don't have to like spell it out. That's like, I think that occurs because you actually are really listening to each other. Now, it's easier because you know each other, but that can occur, I think, in any experience of Chochmah and learning as well. Yeah. So let's try to, you feel free to hold me to this because, or not feel free, I demand that you hold me to this because I want to be a better listener.
Mm.
We'll have to learn how. I mean, I think part of it is you know, picking up with the small cues in yourself and in other people. Yeah, yeah.
So for this,
We really should stop because you're not going to write fair share.
I'm not.
All right, fine. We'll talk about it, but stop now. I don't want to interrupt you.
Yes.
Yes, please keep it and you know,
Put it in the bathroom.
put it in the bathroom. Into the bathroom.